that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Star Trek Lidverse with Star Trek Rise of the Federation 2 Tower of Babel, which is again a part of the Enterprise Relaunch novels sort of lineup. This is also, I almost said directed, written by Christopher L. Bennett, who's written a lot of Star Trek. The biggest thing I took away from this book, and what you could probably notice too, especially if you're a bigger Star Trek fan, Rigel is an important factor in this story. So I looked up some stuff about Rigel. Now, whether you're reading some books, now the books is a bit more complicated because they were never canon, unlike the Star Wars Expanded Universe, but they tried very hard to adhere to continuity, which are two separate things. There are some contradictory, even within the shows, of what Rigel, you got Rigel from Shore Leave, and in the original show, you have a couple different things here or there. He lists all of them at the end of the book, his sources, and this is exactly what the Star Wars Expanded Universe used to do, where he just tried to reconcile all the different, views and explanations of Rigel's system, and put it into one book, so it all can make sense in all continuity. And I think that's beautiful and admirable. In terms of the plot, again, we're still kind of dealing with more stuff. So Rigel also has some crime families that have kind of been in control of Rigel, or at least have a big stake in it. They have a big say. We see the Rigel that they go to in Enterprise on Shore Leave. And so that's stuff, and basically, they just ally with the people who were in the last book, because they don't want Rigel to become a part of the Federation. That's the big thing. And that's basically the plot of the book, Of course, we know by the end, our heroes will succeed, but that's kind of the gist. This is also vastly more Archer-focused. DePaul and Tucker, honestly, in this book, not that it was bad, I enjoyed the stuff with him, but honestly felt like, remember Tucker? Well, he's not actually part of the bridge crew or part of any starship because he's a part of Section 31 right now, so let's just remind you that he exists and is around. Which is, I'm saying that kind of negative, I don't mean it, it's just, he didn't need to be, you could have left him out of the book, it would have been fine, but, him being included isn't a negative to me. It's very clear they don't really have anything to do with him other than remind you that he's around. So Paul gets a little bit more to do. Reed and Mayweather gets a few moments to shine in here, and Hoshi continues to just kind of be there, which is really disappointing so far. But, Travis does get some love, and it just ultimately feels kind of, whatever. But as for plot-wise, but in terms of all the character stuff, continues to be phenomenal. The wider world building, the wider explanation of how do we get to where we're at TOS and the next generation and all that, all starts with, this series, technically, and I think that works really well. As for the modern day plot, though, I really like the politics of it all and trying to formulate and organize this federation and all the problems that come with it. Archer coming into this, sort of serious role apart from Captain, I really enjoy. But outside of that, the actual plot with the, criminals and them doing all this stuff, I don't know, it's been there, done that, I just, and it's not just because of Star Trek, I just mean, in general, with, media, whether it be, the Star Wars Expanded Universe or anything, it's it feels like a villain of the week, and I'm really not here for it, so, that being said, though, I did enjoy the book immensely. It's written great, and I definitely recommend it if you were an Enterprise fan and want more. So that's it for non-spoilers. I'm getting to spoilers if you don't want any of those. Time to go. Um, we get a little bit of this character named Locog, who is one of those Klingons without ridges. Um, and now he's kind of been disgraced. He's joining up into piracy because that's all he can really do. He can't, gain any rank in the Klingon Empire because he's been shamed, and he's of a lesser standing because the way they try to also explain it is that some of the higher families within Klingon structure, some of the ones with the most influence, if they were rich and powerful and had a lot of influence, then despite the deformity, they could surpass that, override that, and still maintain a high rank. We see that in TOS when we have some of them go up against Kirk and stuff. But, all the ones that are just kind of normal people, the working class and below, well, they're kind of just screwed because they basically get sent. They still get to be part of the army to keep their honor, but they're basically just used as cannon fodder in whatever war they happen to be fighting or skirmish. They are meant to just be in the front lines and die if you die, and if you live cool, you're going to keep being sent to the front lines. I mean, Klingons love to fight, so it's not necessarily. It's a thing of you don't get any honorary status for each defeat. Like, you ever remain constantly the same. So it's kind of just pointless. But that's something that was talked about there. We also jumped to 2164, as the last story was primarily 2163. And we again kind of harp on Archer's love life because he doesn't really have one. He's had a couple flings here and there in the show itself, but he's never been able to settle down. And he's getting older, and it's, what legacy does he leave behind? Of course, his legacy is he creates all of the Federation, but personally, what does he, get to leave behind? What does he get to... I mean, he's already, 50. I mean, or at least in his late 40s, so, what does he have? So... Phlox and Thanon have this discussion on fear of change, which was really good. And I just wrote fun politics because, again, all the politics in these books so far have been so vastly interesting and fun. It's a lot the criminal stuff that's in here where they're kind of plotting and scheming. I kind of don't care. I'm trying my hardest to be invested, but I can't lie and say I just don't really care about their scheming because I know they won't succeed. But all the actual world building of people talking and organizing this federation to what it will eventually become, that stuff is vastly interesting. Also, it may just be because I'm biased with Trip, but it does seem like Section 31 back now is a bit better than what they will become in Deep Space Nine, and I guess Discovery now, if you're counting that. Denva in the previous book, was the Orion slave girl that was kind of manipulating events, but because she failed, her punishment in this book is basically to be a sex slave for a bit, which is quite unfortunate to atone. And there's this whole thing about hormone harvesting. It's not super duper relevant to this book, but it seems like it's going to be a bigger relevance down the line. But it is something I thought worth mentioning. Because, the Orients have this whole hormone thing, and if they could harvest it, if they could, anybody could have those hormone, pheromone things going through, which could massively influence people. Archer and this character named Zebra, it's with this S. They get the funky on. Archer, near the end of the book, gets framed for murder, which was a big mistake because this is not something... So the criminal families and these all different organizations, they have plans, to set in motion. One guy really wanted to prove his worth. So he went ahead and did a plan without foresight, without talking to other people. And he rightly gets executed for it, but he kind of just sent a guy to pretend to be Archer and implicate Archer. And all the crime families were so upset because they're like, no, you have to be more subtle. We don't want the Federation to exist, but you can't do something that blatant. With what Archer's done, no one's going to believe that he would do something like this. You have screwed us in that front because no one's going to buy it. And now it's going to put more trust in him because somebody tried to frame him, as opposed to if we subtly over time just oh yeah, Archer's a good guy, but he's way over his head and can't actually formulate this, and then everybody disbands. They're trying very cautiously to deliberately sabotage, halt, and just completely separate this federation before it finally gets started, like getting on the run, because it's in its very early days. And that the criminal that kind of I cared so little about him I didn't even write down his name, but he's like, I'm gonna show everyone how cool I am. I'm gonna get Archer arrested, and it just completely backfires. So Travis, as I said, also gets some additional love in here. He gets some scenes where he really gets to show some wisdom, and I just thought that was nice because Travis, of course, doesn't get that much in the show. Along with Sebra's a part of one of the criminal families, and it was a whole thing. She was meant to seduce. So, and again, this is part of the brilliance of a little bit of the criminal's plans, because she was just meant to have sex with Archer. Have fun, or don't. But the scandal, because again, this would show biasy and stuff, because they're trying to make Rigel be a part of the Federation. But if one of the people that has a say, is having sex with somebody else that's trying to make this plan formulate, then it makes him look bad, in the public eye in terms of that, But she realized how much he needed it, how lonely he's been, and she sees the yearning and genuine care and tenderness that he provides her when they do the act, and so she feels instantly guilty, and she doesn't actually use that against him. She kind of just keeps it to herself, and of course their romance does not last because she lied to him, but she at the very least did not use this to further ruin the Federation, because she saw what an honest, kind, good man Archer was, and I like that quite a bit. Overall, we end with something particularly interesting. I don't know where it's headed, but there is a lady crying in pain, asking for assistance, only to be grabbed by a white hand saying, what was it, your inquiry is insufficient, or something of that nature. Is it the Borg? I don't know. I don't know who else would be saying something like that, which would be interesting. I don't know exactly how you could do that in this time period. I suppose we already had a Borg story in Enterprise, but that was like a one and done, and they barely won, which I rather liked. And of course, no one can really know about the Borg until the Next Generation. I guess Archer did, even if he didn't have a name for it. But it may be something else entirely, but it seems very Borg-like. It said white hands. They're all pale as snow, so I guess we'll see. The next book is called Uncertain Logic. There's no Borg cube or anything. There is a triangle that looks sort of like it. I don't know. I guess we'll find out what happens when I review that next one. But of course, by the time of uploading this, we'll be beginning our adventures through the Wheel of Time novels by Robert Jordan, and of course finished by Brandon Sanderson. Yes, the big name himself. I'm a booktuber and I haven't reviewed Sanderson. Well, got you covered there as we get closer to the Sanderson books. But that's all for people who like Wheel of Time. If you don't care about Wheel of Time, don't even worry about it. But that'll probably be the next 2 weeks, and I'm going to hop back and forth. We'll go back to books 3 and 4 of Enterprise, then back to Wheel of Time, finish with the final book in the Rise of the Federation series. So I'll see you all then. Hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, night, afternoon, whenever you're watching this, and live long and prosper. Bye-bye.